What's up, everybody? JJ Buckets here, yours truly, and just give me 1 second. I wanna look at what time it is. Yeah, that's what I thought. It is time to talk basketball.
Off his foot, shot clock at 3, and Curry gonna try to get one up from way deep and laser it in.
Of course.
Now, for today's video, it's going to be the fourth installment of JJ's Mailbag here. For those of you who don't know, it's a pretty simple and straightforward concept. It's where I turn to you, the viewers, to send in some topics and questions revolving around the Raptors, NBA, and anything in between, and I answer my favorite ones. Now, if you want a chance to be featured in this, keep a lookout in my videos. I usually leave a pinned comment asking for, replies on these topics and questions, and I pick from that. I also tend to make a post on my Instagram page, so if you want to give me a follow on there and keep a lookout for that, you'll have a chance to be featured in one of these future videos. But with all that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's hop into the first topic. Is Masai still the man for the Raptors, or should they start looking for new candidates due to people's feelings that he hasn't made enough moves recently? Come on, man. Come on. I mean, Masai's absolutely still the man for the Raptors. I think it's ridiculous to question whether or not he is. He's, for my money's worth, a top 3 executive in the NBA at worst. And ever since he showed up for the Raptors, they have been one of the most consistent franchises in the NBA. It's funny to me. I think it's really funny that you have one season for the Raptors where, they start losing and people forget how to act. People absolutely forget how to act. It's hilarious to me because I've seen, don't get me wrong, Riley's not wrong. People have been genuinely questioning this, and people have been asking whether or not Masai is still the right person for the job because he's had small missteps, maybe of, say, not trading Kyle Lowry at the deadline for assets, or lowballing Serge Ibaka because he wanted to bank on this year's free agency class, which is obviously still not loaded. People have started questioning whether or not Nick Nurse is the coach for this team moving forward because he can't apparently turn a really bad role player into a decent one, and apparently his coaching has gotten worse, even though it really hasn't. At the personnel he's just dealing with is just not ideal at the moment at all, especially when you have guys like constantly in and out of the lineup, especially this year with the Raptors' COVID issues and everything. And hell, this extends to the players too. People have obviously been questioning Pascal and just roasting him like crazy at every opportunity, despite the fact that I think overall Pascal has actually had a pretty decent season. Like, don't get me wrong, he's not perfect. He hasn't been perfect this year, but he's been a good player. I think it's ridiculous to think that he hasn't, frankly. This whole stuff just gives me a headache, genuinely, because, like I said, one losing season is all it takes for apparently just a bunch of Raptors fans to start questioning everything going on with this organization. And in relation to this question specifically, Masai. Masai's still the right person for this job, absolutely. No question about it, not at all. You know how that saying goes, in Masai, we trust. Does DeRozan get a statue? No. I mean, listen, I have a whole lot of love for DeMar. He's one of my personal top 10 favorite players of all time, just because of his time here. Just was special. It was. I'm not gonna pretend like it wasn't. I think him and Kyle Lowry did a fantastic job really changing the perception of the Raptors franchise, I think. And DeMar was tremendous. I think he had a big impact in being the quote-unquote star player that didn't leave, when beforehand, that was always kind of the perception where stars didn't want to play in Toronto. Those kind of like bigger names didn't want to stay with the Raptors, and I think DeMar staying with Toronto went a long way to kind of, making you realize that this team has come a long way and this franchise has come a long way. And he was a great player on the court too. Obviously, he's had his all-star berths here, and he's easily one of the best players in franchise history. Nobody's denying that, but I think if anybody's going to get a statue in Toronto at this point, it's very obviously Kyle Lowry. I think the championship in particular is what really solidifies that case. And at the moment, I think Kyle Lowry is probably the only player that is going to get a statue for the Raptors if, they decide to put a statue up. I love DeMar. Very much so enjoyed watching him when he was here. Still enjoy watching him now. But I just don't think his impact overall for the Raptors is large enough that I think it warrants him getting a statue. I'm sorry. If the Raptors hypothetically make the play-in, do they end up making the playoffs? Now, for those of you who don't know, the way the structuring for the playing tournament is going to go is the 7-8 are going to match up, and then the 9 and 10 are going to match up, and then the loser of the 7-8 matchup is going to play the winner of the 9-10 matchup, and that'll determine the last playoff seed. Do I think the Raptors will make the playoffs if they're in the play-in tournament? Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. I think this team is a whole lot better than its record. I think the Raptors have had a tremendous amount of just bad luck this year with injuries, obviously with COVID, and with the signing of Aaron Baines. Oh, sorry. I think in particular, with the addition of Khem Birch, this team has quietly rounded into solid and respectable with everybody healthy. I think they're more than good enough to roll into Indiana, which in all likelihood is going to be the 9 seed, and win that matchup. And then frankly roll into, if I had to guess, Charlotte and win that matchup. If you follow this channel, you know that's literally the exact opposite of what I want to see. I would love to see the Raptors end up as the 12th seed and give themselves the best possible odds to jump up in the lottery. But if in this scenario they end up clinching the 10 seed, if I had to bet money on it, which I wouldn't, frankly, because this team has also just been inconsistent even when everybody's healthy and things are kind of going quote unquote right, I guess. But if I had to bet money on it, I think they would make it. I really do. I would hate it, truly and tremendously. But do I think they would make it? Yeah. This next one here is probably one of the most ridiculous questions I've gotten for a mailbag, but it also might just be the most genuinely fun. John wants to know which Toronto Raptor is most likely to survive an actual Velociraptor attack. I'm gonna go, sorry, I'm still just taking this one in. I'm gonna go with OG Anunoby for a couple of reasons. The first one being OG is just dumb strong. I could totally see like a Velociraptor attacking it, him just like picking that thing up and just chucking it out of the way. Shout out Dennis Schroeder. I mean, obviously Dennis Schroeder is a little smaller than a Velociraptor, but still. OG's got dumb strength, and I think he would actually put up a good fight against Velociraptors attacking him. And then on top of which, OG just has that like calm and just serenity to him that I think not only could he fight off the Velociraptors if they came at him, but for some odd reason I think he could actually tame them. Like, I just imagine the Velociraptors coming up to OG and he just kind of stands there like, and just looks at all of them dead in the eye, stone cold. And they just all go from like incredibly violent to just respecting the game and respecting the craft and respecting OG, and they just sit down and go, okay. And then they just turn into like his evil henchman or something. If you could add one franchise player to each team for this year, who would win the championship? Now I asked for clarification on this one, so it's basically just like all-time franchise players from each individual franchise, and for the sake of I guess, continuity and just a lack of confusion or duplicates. No active franchise players are going to be allowed. So say a prime Chris Paul getting added to the Clippers would be absolutely fantastic for that team. But then you have 2 Chris Pauls in the league. Like, that's weird. That's stupid. We're not doing that. So the way I kind of looked at this is I looked at some like the top teams that already competed for a title and what adding a franchise player could potentially do for them in terms of really putting them over the top. And I think there's a lot of really fun teams to look at here. I'm gonna get the honorable mentions out of the way first in terms of like, yeah, this is close or at least worth considering, but ultimately I don't think it gets the job done in terms of winning the title this year. A sleeper one for a team, I guess, that's not necessarily like fully in the title picture this year, even though they still could be, you never know. Boston Celtics, if they add Larry Bird, to the team that they have now, holy crap, I think that could be fun. I mean, obviously they lost Gordon Hayward, which is proving to be a little bit more of a loss, I think, than they might have anticipated it being. I think adding Larry Bird to that Celtics team this year is a really fun thing to think about. I think having him, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum all on one team, that's potentially a title team for sure, especially because Larry Bird, was such a gifted playmaker, and I think playmaking is something that team lacks. On top of everything that he's great at, Larry gives them a lot. He really does. In terms of just like fixing their needs, and I think Larry's one of the best players of all time, obviously, so I think that's a team that quietly could potentially push for a title. Another fun thing to think about is the Philadelphia 76ers and potentially adding somebody like Allen Iverson to that team, especially because obviously shooting and perimeter scoring is something that team could really use. I think Allen Iverson could really unlock that roster a lot and that team, and I think he's somebody that could play really well off of Joel Embiid, or vice versa, frankly. Yeah, that would be a really fun team to think about. I think they absolutely deserves an honorable mention as well. I think the Bucks potentially with adding either Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or adding Oscar Robertson to that team could make them a really fun team that could definitely push for a title. I was tempted to include the Nets in here, but I think adding somebody like, say, Jason Kidd to the Nets really doesn't do that much for me personally. I guess you could include Vince Carter in there. He played a decent amount there for a bit with the Nets, so I guess if you want to include them in this conversation as well, that's absolutely a thing that you can do. I think the Clippers, maybe, if we're talking like Bob McAdoo or something, that's a cool addition to the team. I don't know if it's a game-changing addition, but I think they would absolutely be in the title race for sure, as they already are. Last honorable mention here, because I think it's also an interesting one. I think if you add Charles Barkley to the Suns this year, oh my god, that team just becomes even more just tremendously fun to watch. Like, wow. Wow. Like, I think the Suns are quietly one of the most slept on teams this year. I don't necessarily think they're gonna win the title, but I don't really see it out of the realm of possibility whatsoever. And I think if you add Barkley to the mix there, super fun. Super fun combination there, and I think that could be a tremendous team. With all that being said though, it's absolutely gonna be the Lakers. I built up all this like dramatic suspense, talking about all these potentially great teams that could come out from adding an all-time like legend and franchise player to these teams. But come on, man. And specifically for the Lakers, the late great Kobe Bryant, you add him to that team and you put LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Anthony Davis on the court together. That's a wrap. So that does it for me today. What do you folks think? Which of these topics do you just genuinely disagree with me on? Comment below and let me know. Obviously, hit the like button for me if you can. It doesn't take a lot of time and it goes a long way to helping this video be seen by more people, so I really appreciate it every time you folks do it. Other than that, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you stick around and watch more of my videos. I think I put out decent videos, so hopefully you agree. Other than that, folks, that's gonna do it for me today, and I am out of here.